Jim, it is a pleasure to talk to you, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I was talking with Eddie, who is on the show with me. He's like my best friend, but he was like, hey, you want to hear the Jim Gaffigan joke, the bathroom joke? And he tells it, and it's not that funny, but I've heard you do it, and it's very funny. And so do people ever come up to you and like tell you your own jokes back and they completely butcher? It's like you've just missed the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, it does. It is weird how sometimes contacts are, like they remember it a certain way. But I think we all have like loved a sketch or a line from like SNL, and then you end up watching it again and you're like, oh, they didn't even say that.
That's precisely what he did. He's like, you got to hear this joke. And he told it. And I was like, that's not really the joke. But he's been telling a lot of people that joke. And I feel like he's giving you a bad name by telling a joke that's not really yours.
I'm going to have to sue him.
I agree with that.
Well, I'm done.
Jim's coming to town. He's actually, in a lot of the cities our show is on. But in Nashville on March 30th, Little Rock on March 31st, Kansas City on April 1st, and on and on. Now, when you do a show, these massive shows, do you feel at all like it's harder to connect on an intimate level with an audience when there are so many people?
Well, it's shifted dramatically. You would think that would be the case, but the technology, meaning the audio and the video feed, has advanced so much that it depends on the venue. So, like, I mean, I've performed at a lot of different places in Nashville, and I think I wouldn't. I mean, the Ryman is amazing, but I think there's no bad seats at the Bridgestone Arena. And so as long as they can see and hear, that's pretty important. And then there's the communal experience. So if it's a big cavernous place and it's not sold out or it's sold very poorly, then it probably wouldn't be that great. But if it's a big place and most of the tickets are sold, I think it's a pretty amazing situation.
Did you remember that Bridgestone and Ryman from your head? Or like when I'm doing like a satellite TV tour promoting a TV show, I'll have cities and like even what radio station I'm on, and I'll just kind of fit it in, but I'll have it held up behind the screen. Was that what happened there, or you just remember every single venue?
Well, some of it is you do make a point of talking about things, but I would say, I'm a whore. I'm not going to tell you that I'm not.
Yeah.
But I would say that, there's not many places more famous than the Ryman. And I think, everyone in Nashville most people have been to the Bridgestone. And so, the difference between the Bridgestone and some arena that was built in 1960 there's a pretty dramatic difference.
Yeah. Is it harder to heckle you if someone were to heckle in an arena? I never thought about that, huh?
I never really thought about that. Yeah. I mean, my comedy, I don't really bring out the hecklers. You know what I mean? I don't really peddle in shock. Like if there's kind of a victim of my commentary, it's usually myself. So, but yeah, I guess to answer your question, it probably would be weirder in a bigger place, probably less effective.
Now, yes, I think you're universally loved. You're a beloved character. But as an example, I was performing at the Opry, the Grand Ole Opry, a few nights ago, and when I was there, I was doing some comedy, but I was getting love heckled. There were some people from the state that I'm from, and they kept going, "We love you," like in the middle of a joke, and it was driving. And they weren't saying I suck, but they were like love heckling. And do you ever get like love heckled where you're like, guys, I know you love me, but you got to let me do my thing?
Well, it can be. There are disruptive. There's people that yell Hot Pockets and stuff like that, or will yell certain jokes, but not that often. I would say people that like my comedy, it's less of a, obviously there's a conversation with the audience, but I would say people that come to my shows, it's, it's a different experience. You're coming for the comedy. You're not coming for the interaction, or like, no one's coming to see what I'm wearing. You know what I mean? No one's coming to hear like a celebrity story from me. You know what I mean? So it's a different experience.
We have artists that come by and friends of ours in the music industry, and if they've had a hit for a long time, they know they have to play the hit. But they also don't want to play the hit because they've played the hit so many times. You mentioned Hot Pocket. Is that how you feel at that point when you have to kind of bring that back up?
It's, it's been evolving. Like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I would have said I have to end with it. But, I've done so many specials that, I mean, there might be like a 13-year-old boy that definitely wants to hear the Hot Pockets thing. But some of it is with stand-up, unlike music, I think, the unspoken agreement is that it's going to be new material, and it's going to be good new material. You know what I mean? So, like, people intellectually think they want to hear the old stuff, but it's the surprise element of stand-up. So it's the unknown element that I think people really look forward to. But that being said, there is a huge advantage of them knowing my point of view. So, like, similar to when you do a show, they know you. So they know what your point of view is going to be about. So there's it's an advantage, and also it establishes a level of communication that is not immediately apparent.
I used to watch your TV Land show. Loved it. Thought it was just a brilliant show. And, it was about you and your family and your kids. And, I wonder how realistic that is. Do your kids at this point, do they think you're funny? Have they come along and evolved to know that their dad is funny now?
It's so funny because that TV Land show was in some way, I don't know how long, time is such a blur, but I'm on vacation right now with my family, and there is, I think any parent, there is a level of, my kids, humor is very important in our family, but they're also the harshest critics. What's unique about this tour that I'm doing is that my 16-year-old son is also opening. So, it's one of those things where I think he's really funny, and but it's like humor's pretty important, but like, so his sense of humor is different from mine. I don't know if I'm even answering the question, but
yeah, you are in a way. Do they go, my dad's hilarious, or are you just their dad and you're just their dad that's also a comedian that tells jokes to other people?
Yeah, I mean, I've got 5 kids, so it depends on the age. My 17-year-old probably thinks I'm funny, but, her favorite comedian is John Mulaney. My 16-year-old, who's opening for me, he's much more of an Eric Andre guy. But and then my 12-year-old probably doesn't think I'm funny at all. My 10-year-old, he's just my dad, and my 9-year-old, he's just my dad. But yeah, it's weird. It's because my comedy is not, it's nothing to be that embarrassed about. So I talk about my family and I talk about parenting and all that, but it's not one of those things where they would be embarrassed to be associated with the material.
You mentioned you're on vacation. Would you be like, oh, I'm on vacation, but hey, and ask your wife, they have a little comedy club down the street. Can I swing over there and do like a little session, a little set? Would you do that, or would she allow that?
Yeah, I would do that. And she would, this vacation is, I just did a week I was in Mexico City for a week, and I did a show at the end of the week. So it's weird because, I definitely, like, comedians have to perform. So some of it is, I do always, like, if we go on vacations, I'll usually line up shows. Like during the, last Christmas we were in Florida, so I brought my family, and I did some shows around Florida. And I've done that with, like we did skiing, but like part of me, it's too hard. It's because it's two different mindsets. I mean, I don't know about you. I don't even know about your family situation, but the role of a parent is completely different from the job. You know what I mean?
I do not, because I don't have kids yet, but I would assume that when I'm with my wife, the role of a husband is different than the job. And so I'm not allowed. I'm not allowed. I just say it. I'm not allowed. So,
yeah, Bobby's like, I wouldn't get to work on
I
vacation.
don't. I mean, I can try to relate, but I'm not allowed. Yeah. Jim Gaffigan is doing the fun tour. You guys can go to jimgaffigan.com if you want to get tickets. In so many of the cities our show is, I mean, you're almost tour like Zeppelin in the 60s. You go to every city every night. I'm looking at the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. You tour like a rock star. And so you're going to be out all over the place. Are you working on a special as you do this, or do you already have? Yes.
Yeah, it's as I mentioned, it's all the unspoken agreement is that it's all new material, and it's ever creating new material. The expectation is that I'll tape a special in October, but if I get a movie or something, that might mess it up. But it's always, stand-up's very much self-assignment. And for me, if I'm performing a lot, if I'm doing, like you were talking about, those multiple nights in a row, like that's a very creative time for me. That's where I essentially do nothing during the day except for listen to the set and kind of write and rewrite. So it's what I love, though.
Jim, good to talk to you. I hope the tour is amazing. I'm sure it will be. And, just a big fan of your work and appreciate the time.
Appreciate it.
All right, there it is. Jim Gaffigan, everybody.